This is the On All Cylinders podcast,
powered by Summit Racing.
Your host for today is Summit Racing's Brian Nutter, with special guest, automotive journalist and land speed racer, Liz Leggett.
Here we go.
Hey everybody, it is Brian at Summit Racing here. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. As you guys have heard, my name is Liz Leggett. I'm an automotive photojournalist, race car driver. I do all kinds of different things, and I'm very excited to share any bit of my life with everyone because it's all exciting stuff.
It was really cool. So I think I met you in person at the first time at the UEM booth at the PRI show.
Yes, absolutely. I was there with UEM to represent the Iron Dinosaur racing team, which is the team I do land speed racing with. We go out to the ECTA events and the SCT events, which take place at Arkansas and Bonneville.
So we've known Steve Strupp at the ECTA for a long time, and I've raced with him in the ECTA for years. Most recently, we took the Summit Tesla out there to Blytheville to kind of document what it's like to have one of those vehicles. But mostly this is about you and the documentary that Allison Swank did with you. I guess I want to, in essence, with this podcast, just talk about like how you got into this, starting off in your younger days with you and your dad and where things are at today and where you're heading. Let's start at the beginning. Tell me about growing up with your dad.
Absolutely. So I originally am from an area just outside of Montreal, Quebec. So I'm originally from up north. The reason I exist, I tell people, is because of a hobby called live steam. So it's a hobby. It was predominantly like a tool and diamonds hobby or a machinist hobby where you take steam locomotives, you scale down all of the measurements, and you build a scale replica of a steam locomotive that actually still operates. So you boil water, you burn coal to boil the water, collect up the steam, and then it works and you get pulled around small tracks, and there's different gauges. And so this is a hobby that's existed for a very, very long time. And my family actually helped kind of bring it over from England to North America for the first time back in, I think it was in the 30s, 20s or 30s, I think it was the 20s. So originally, one great-grandfather was a builder. He built 18 steam locomotives, and the other was a fellow friend builder who built 36 steam locomotives. So Jim Turnbull and there was Turnbull and Leggett. So those are the two families. One had a son.
Oh, I know that name.
Yeah. There's Turnbull and Leggett. So that's from my family. So I'm from the Leggett family and the Turnbull.
So you're a legit fourth generation steam engineer.
Yes, I am. Yeah, that's how I exist. Because one of them had a son, one had a daughter. They met through their fathers being corresponding and being friends. And yeah, so Turnbull helped bring the hobby over with a Lester B. Friend and whatnot. There's a lot of history there, and it's a really interesting aspect of just my life, but that's why I exist, is tiny trains. And so I've been doing that, of course, fourth generation. So since I was a little girl being told, all right, here, I got my first engine when I was like 8 years old. She's nicknamed the Pickle Barrel. She's a little 060 saddle tank, and she was green. So,
and you still have her.
Of course. That's my first and most valuable possession. That was my first engine, and it was built by my great grandfather. So I got that when I was really young, and it was all, okay, here, little girl, here's a bottle of kerosene and some matches. Go and have some fun. And that was it. It was like the best time ever. But being mechanically inclined is in my blood, I guess. It's or at least mechanically passionate. I grew up in a house filled with steam locomotives, and there was a machine shop in the basement and in the backyard. It's a huge inspiration for me going forward with all my racing and stuff like that, because in my heart of hearts, like it's me and the machine and your engine sitting out in the middle of a field, running around, doing laps, just you and the machine all by yourself, just listening to the engine run and knowing what it needs. And you are a part of it because you have to feed it the fuel. You're deciding whether the water goes in or not. And so you're an intrinsical part of the machine operating. And that was my childhood fun. So that was, oil and steam and coal. And
so you're a human carburetor.
Yeah, exactly.
But so anyway, tell me about that transition into cars and motorcycles for you. Go-karts, if they were there as well.
Yeah, definitely. So my dad has always been in, and my mom as well, because my parents, people ask if my mom's around. My mom's absolutely around. She's busy working and stuff like that, so she doesn't get to come out to as many races, but she's my biggest supporter out of everyone. But they were both graphic designers, and my dad before computers even, and doing illustration and stuff like that, airbrush art. And so my dad, from the graphic design stuff, he also worked doing press releases and things like that. And then he was working doing the photography at different go-kart tracks, doing press releases for racers and working with the Russ Bond agency. So Russ Bond was a friend of his from childhood, and Russ gave us a lot of, we all worked together doing stuff when I was young, quite young. I was like 10, 11 years old when I'd start like going with my dad to tracks. And at a certain point, it's interesting. I started doing the photography and learning how to pan and stuff like that with a Canon 10D. So it was film. I first started with film. So a lot of people go, oh, digital. It's like, well, my early days of learning how to pan and stuff like that, the whole, you have to wait a while to see your shots and all that. And then the digital age kind of happened, in which the big thing became live race reporting and websites. And you started having, like, we always being in the media room and stuff like that. It started becoming, okay, you have to have a Wi-Fi hookup, and you have to have somebody at the computer, and you have to have somebody up on the balcony watching the race, taking notes. And so my dad would stay up on the balconies at like SRA karting and stuff like that, SH karting up in Quebec, and he would do the notes and stuff. And he looked at me, he's like, well, you know how to use this thing. And he'd hand me the camera. I would shoot the race. I'd shoot the pits. I'd interview the racers. Then I'd run upstairs, give him the tape of the interview, give him the CF card, get the fresh cards, run down and shoot the next race. And he would write in between races and upload. And so I started shooting stuff really young and photographing, like Lance Stroll and like all these some racers that you hear of nowadays and like F1 stuff like that. I got to shoot them. We grew up together. Like I was growing up shooting a lot of these guys. And so it was a cool childhood doing that. But then we worked for the Montreal Gazette. So the big local newspaper. We were doing the car section. So we'd get press cars that we would test for the week. It's next year's press car. Right. We got the Hellcat the year before with the red key. We got it the year before it came out, and it was like 2018 or whatever. So I got to do burnouts and that thing and stuff. And so we worked for the newspaper and then magazines and stuff like that. And then I got a job working with Pascal Richard at Revolution Motorcycle Magazine. Dad and I photographed him for the Gazette. We did a story on him, and then he hired me to work for his magazine, and it snowballs. That's how things kind of happen. And it just grows and grows, doing car shows and then import tuner shows. So I used to work for an import tuner magazine. So I've used to do all those indoor shows where the whole stadium's like vibrating at 12 o'clock and it's just bzz, bzz, done all that kind of stuff. And then got to shoot F1 and NASCAR. I got to be on Ron Fellows' team and photograph him when he was up and when they did the Canadian race. He won that race. I was 16 or 17 years old. I was their team photographer, and they won. It was NASCAR in road course in the rain, and it rained. Yeah. So they pulled out the rain tires. It was amazing. So I could go on forever. I obviously have.
I get it. So tell me like roughly the timeline. Because you had to be going through school at this time, at the same time that your dad was, dragging you to the racetrack. Like what was it trying to go racing or be around it, and then also go to school?
Well, like you have like classmates and stuff. Like when you'd show up at school in like next year's cool car, like that's pretty cool. And you'd have some friends that like I have friends now from high school and stuff that do work in the automotive trades and stuff, which I think is really cool. But like at the time, it was kind of like, what's up with this? She's into trains, and some of them would be like, "Oh, that's a really cool car," and they kind of get it. But I think my teachers also thought I was a little bit odd as well. But I think it was really cool getting to go and do that stuff on the weekends, and then go back to school and be doing like high school things. And I still I was a party kid too. I used to go out, dancing and drinking with friends and doing that. Yeah. Then I remember one time I was at like a rave, and they were all like, "Oh, we're going to party all day." And I said, "Cool, I can't, but I got to go home because I have a photo shoot tomorrow." And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, like my dad and I, we work together and we have a photo shoot tomorrow." So I got to be, and they're like, "You're friends with your dad?"
Right.
It's like you work with, and it's like, yeah, that's always been the thing is I've always worked with them. And to this day, like we talk almost every day or as often as we can about racing, and we work together with the SCTA. So the timeline would have been from childhood, elementary school, all the way through high school. And then when I graduated high school, I went to Dawson College for a little while, which is downtown Montreal. And I went into photography because I'm like, you have to go to school. You have to do that. And I had some really great inspirational teachers. It was a really hard program to get into. Like there was thousands of applicants and I got a really high praise for my portfolio, but I was already working in photography. Like I already was doing jobs. So I was there for a little while and I realized that I was asking questions that were too advanced for the class because I already knew physics. And they'd say, well, come after class and ask those questions. And I need to get 15 minutes across campus to my next class. I can't. So my teacher said, well, you're going to school to do photography, but you're already in the newspaper. Like they would bring in the newspaper and my classmates would be annoyed by that. Like, oh, look, Liz is published today. But they're like, you're giving up opportunities to work, to do homework. Like you're putting the cart before the horse. But I was like, okay. They're like, you should leave. And I'm like, no, like, so I stuck it out. I was like, no, this is a test from the universe. I got to stick out. And then I realized that with that piece of paper, with that certificate, I would be able to teach photography. In photojournalism, or a lot of it is based on portfolio or your work or your connections. And I was giving those up to do school. So I left. I was in the middle in a 1974 Westphalia van, VW bus.
Yeah.
In the middle of the desert after road tripping from Montreal all the way to Bonneville and on Route 66, living in the van. We didn't stay anywhere but the van with a friend named Billy who owned the van. And I realized, I think I was somewhere in Southern California and I looked at the calendar and realized that school started in a week. But I was in a 74 VW bus.
If you're in a Westphalia, I don't know that you're going to get anywhere real quick.
No, we'll travel at night because it's air cool, right?
Right.
It's like strategic.
Oh, yeah.
I realized even if I could make it back for school, but I'm having the most amazing time and I'm shooting amazing cars. And I'm going to Ventura Nationals and I'm doing all these amazing things, living on Route 66 and living my dream. And I called the school and said, well, I think I'm not going to make it. And they said, well, we'll put your credits on hold and you can come back one day. Okay. And I never went back, but maybe those credits are still on hold.
So what's interesting about that is the educational aspect, right?
I learned a lot.
Right. And that's part of the reason why I'm talking with you today and other people that have done kind of a similar path, is just to show people like, hey, there's, take some plunges. Mm-hmm. When something happens, you got to say yes. You can't say no to that. So you did that, and then you became a professional that day. You're already cranking out professional quality work. So tell me about the next few years.
It's funny. It's interesting doing interviews or talking with people and like actually, reflecting back on the years that you've lived. And I think, well, when that happened, I started going to Bonneville in 2012. And I think that first trip to Bonneville in 2012 was in the van and whatnot. But then we did the next year, my dad and my mom and I have a sister, Victoria, as well. She's fantastic. I don't talk about her enough, but she's great. She's not into cars or loud noises or being jostled or anything like that. She's quite level-headed. She's the headed one. We took our family's car, which was a stock 1950 Chevy with a 216 inline six. You know the saying, see America in your Chevrolet today?
Yeah. Totally.
We drove from Montreal all the way down along Route 66 and went up. We went up to Bonneville, then we went back. It was you can only go because it's Babbitt splash bearings, so you don't want to go anything too fast over like 55 because then you're not getting the proper oiling into the engine. So 55 miles an hour from Montreal all the way to California and back.
Oh my God!
It took about like 2 months, and plus that's going to Bonneville, and it was so much fun that we did it again the next year.
So what's crazy about that is you're telling a story that could have been told in 1968, but you're telling it 30 years later. It's such a romanticized idea of what your dad is doing with his family. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, and my mom for my childhood, she worked at a very high-end children's gift store, toy store in Westmount. And so she would dress 1950s and she has like the victory roll and whatnot. She had the cutest little outfits. So imagine me I was just, I've got green hair and stuff like that, but I'm kind of I call myself like a hot rod hippie, but I'm not a hippie, but I'm one of those, I dress with bell bottoms and colorful clothes. And then you've got the mom dressed 50s and you've got the dad looking with his flat cap. And then there's me all colorful. And then there's a 50s car. And I'm like, it's like the 60s kid and the 50s parent.
Like time travel.
Exactly. And I've lived in this like bizarre time travel warp. And I just, my daily car is a 1967 Buick Riviera. I drove her yesterday 3 hours and the day before 3 hours also.
Right.
So like I drive her around. And last summer was an 8,500 mile road trip in that car. And I nicknamed her Maya as a Maya Riviera. So she's got a 430 cubic inch engine and everything that could go wrong on that road trip did. And it was the best thing ever. Even the disasters are fun.
Well, that's right. I had a similar deal. Took a 66 Continental on a more or less a maiden voyage. Somehow I thought I could drive the thing to Nebraska, and the thing broke down in Iowa, right on the side of the road. And it was winter. It was cold. And the craziest thing was we were within eyesight on I-80 of a 63 Continental. Somebody else crazy had a 63 Continental that it too broke down. It with its 430 mil and mine with its 462 mil motor.
What?
Oh, yeah. Weird, right? And then I had this friend Jason. He picks us up with a trailer with a Saturn station wagon and essentially tows us into Omaha, where he's living, to kind of just serve as a rescue. But, it's through those things and the adversity that make you stronger, right?
Absolutely. They're the stories you don't talk about. Oh, we drove from point A to point B and everything went great.
Right.
Absolutely. You talk about, well, remember the time we were at the gas station, the car wouldn't start, and that stranger came up to us and said, hey, come follow us, follow me, brings us to his barn, his big shop. He goes, well, use any of the tools you need. I'm going away for Labor Day. Have a good time. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, pay it forward. And that's how I've tried to live my life. He let us use his shop. And while we needed to rebuild the starter, we figured out what the problem was. During this time, we're living in this guy's metal barn. There was a tornado that went by. So literally in the field, next to us, the sirens going off and crazy. It's the craziest thing. We got photographs and videos of the whole thing, the building shaking. And I slept, my dad slept on a car. I slept in the car. And we did that. We were stuck there for a week. And then we figured it out and fixed the car and then drove off on our merry way. You don't talk about, oh, yeah, that's the cool story. And it was crazy at the time. You were scared at the time. There's hail the size of golf balls. But later on, you go, man, what an amazing thing to live through. All
right. So at some point, you made your way, I think, was Mil-Spec your first stop in New Jersey, or what was that transition like making and I don't know if it's that big of a deal to move to the US or if it's not, or maybe it is, I don't know, but yeah. What was that like to pick up and move?
Yeah, that was a big move. So I actually got married, and that's how I ended up in the United States. And yeah, I'm not married anymore, or kind of. It's a long story, but essentially what happened is I moved to the U.S. and I had just been really starting to get some traction with my photography, and I was hosting, I got to host the Montreal Auto Show, and I was really getting some traction as a media person. I really was pushing and building my portfolio, and then I moved, and I needed to get a 9-to-5 job, and so yeah. I was like, okay, well. There were suggestions of being a secretary in a lawyer's office, which paid a lot of money, and a few other suggestions, which were good suggestions. Those are fantastic jobs. But this oddball in that office, I've tried that kind of stuff. I've worked as a photo retoucher. I've done landscaping. I've done food. I've done sales. I've done a little bit of everything. A nice way to round yourself out as a Jill of all trades. But I ended up going down the road. There was a shop, and the shop was called Valhalla Auto Restoration. I go by one day, I walk into the shop, and a guy at the back spots me. He goes, oh, hey, Liz. I moved to some random place in New Jersey that I had never been to.
What?
I walk in this shop, and this guy that's a mutual friend of mine, that we have mutual friends. I walk in, and he's like, we already follow each other on Instagram. He was
no way.
The shop was 10 minutes from the house. Literally a random shop that I walk into, and it was owned by AJ Biancone. And honestly, AJ and the guys at Valhalla gave me my first start. And I went by, and it was Munch Gonzalez, who's a painter. We have friends in common. So I go by, and they say, oh, okay, well, there's a spot of being an assistant/apprentice for the painter. I said, okay, well, I got to go to Bonneville. They said, well, when you're done, come back, and got the job, kind of a thing. Okay. Came back, and there's a guy working there. They said, the job's been filled. I said, okay. Do you want me to sweep up? I'll clean the kitchen. I'll answer the phones. They said, oh yeah, just clean up one day. So I cleaned up. They said, would you mind coming back tomorrow? Cleaned up some more. Would you mind coming back tomorrow? And I ended up answering the phone one day because nobody likes answering. Hello, Valhalla Auto Restoration. This is Liz speaking. How may I help you? And they were like, can you just like sit up front and like do that? And it's like this chick who's just like, all right, I'm coming in and I'm going to find the spaces.
Yes.
Fit into
You're going to make your own space.
And I'm like, if you want me to go and degrease that frame, like we just took apart that Willys and you need it to be degreased. I'm in the trash bag with the power washer. You need me to go and pick up the parts at the parts store. I'll go do that. And then over time, eventually the fellow who was in the apprentice spot left. And they looked at me and it's like, okay, you're up. So I became Munch's assistant. And Munch does incredible paint, but he does like lowrider style panel painting and stuff. So I got to be a part of his car and the Bubble Boy Impala and a few other cars that I got to help tape out and prep. And I got to paint my first flaked out transmission, which is in his car. They really taught me a lot. I was always, of course, wanting more, and opportunities that pop up, you gotta chase them. So with the person I was with, we were doing World War II reenactment, which was a passion of his and something he'd done since he was young, but I got into it. I thought it was really fun because you gain a complete different layer of appreciation for what veterans did when you're running through a frozen field holding a Garand adapted for blanks. Because I didn't do like whack or any of the female impression. I did reenactment as a U.S. infantryman. If I was going to do it, I'm going in the field. I'm riding on the tank. I'm riding in the scout car. Yeah. I'm not sitting back and making sandwiches. So I put 52 bobby pins in my hair up under a helmet. I eventually got the wig cap thing. That worked out better. And I was U.S. Sergeant Lenny, and Sergeant Lenny was running with the guys and doing that.
Sergeant Lenny.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting thing that I loved it. And then we were a part of a Red Ball Military Vehicle Club, the guy who owns the shop that restores tanks. And at the time, I had taken a quick break at Valhalla because I had some stuff to do, like photo work. And I got approached with the opportunity, said, hey, we really need a painter / someone who does detailing, all this stuff. And AJ works at who's the owner of Valhalla. Best, most amazing friend ever. He fully supported it because he went, that's an incredible opportunity. You need to do that. What an amazing person. It's like the way Don Gilmore's.
Selfless people.
Absolutely. And that's awesome. It's incredible. And I'm only a product of my environments and the people that I'm with and the things that I expose myself to. But what a blessing to be able to encounter somebody like that who not only took a chance on someone who had no tech experience. I've never gone to a tech school. I've never taken a welding class or like a machining class, but I can run a lathe decently. I can weld decently. I can do body work and paint and do all these things just because people took the chance on teaching someone, even though they didn't have prerequisite papers or, it's all up to them. I'm all thankful to them.
So first off, MilSpec doesn't advertise. They don't have a website presence. They're very word of mouth. They've been around for a long time because I've seen some things even on like the History Channel of their work, but tell me about that and who their customers are and the vehicles.
So they do work for private clients and museums and stuff like that. There's the World War II museum that opened up in Gettysburg. That was Frank Buck's collection. And Frank Buck he's sadly passed. His son Adam runs the place. So that was one of our clients. And so we have clients all over the country. One of the CCKWs I painted ended up at the Fort MacArthur Museum in California. That vehicle might be getting sold to a different collection. And so it's the same, like all these niche worlds. When you're into Datsuns, and then you have there's that guy who knows how to do the starter thing, and then there's the guy who knows where this is, and the guy who does the headliners. That's what the amazing thing about the automotive world is. It has so many different facets. But getting to work on a Ford GAA, which is the world's largest naturally aspirated 500 horsepower engine, which is what runs a Sherman. Yeah. Oh my gosh, getting to do a valve job on that, or working with Jim at MilSpec, who's also done a lot of racing. We go-karting and stuff like that. He took a lot of time with me and teaching me things. And of course, EJ Kowalski took a lot of time teaching me a lot of things. But with the military stuff, like right now, I went by the other day to help out. I can't do it full time because it's far away. But at the same time, I can go by and do special projects every once in a while and go to events and things like that and see them. And we're all still friends. And it was fun going by the other day and doing some work.
I saw that you were inside this, was it a Sherman?
It's a M36 Jackson tank destroyer. So the running gear and everything like that is like a Sherman tank.
So you've driven tanks?
Well, not yet. I've driven Weasels, I've driven CCKWs, I've driven the ambulance. I was supposed to drive a tank, but due to scheduling conflict, I wasn't able to. But Bob keeps teasing me with that. So he said that there's an event upcoming. He said, well, if you're there, maybe you can run a tank. I'm like, oh, it's a dream come true. But it's like anything else. You take that opportunity if you can make it.
So, okay. So then what happened next?
So then I had to move, so I wasn't able to do that as a full-time job. Right around that time, I have always been doing the photography and the photojournalism and the books and the stuff for the SCTA. And we just had a new book come out, which is called Aero Wars, 71 car of Bobby Isaac, the recreation of that car. And so my father and I, we've been working on books and all kinds of amazing projects. And then in 2023, finally, after a few years of trying, I had gotten the opportunity to race with the Dinosaur. Don Gilmore met me and Dad and hired us to do photography of the team out at Bonneville. And he offered for me to have the chance to drive the car. And over several years, things would happen, either rain or things would break and things would happen. And that's captured in the film, was that buildup of years and years of, since being a little girl, always wondering like, well, I'd love to drive. And what's it like being interviewed? And what's it like going to the press trade show and not being the photographer? You're walking around seeing people doing things and you're like, it's interesting. I wonder what it'd be like. And all of a sudden I got that chance, and you got to wait a little longer and a little longer and a little longer. And it built up to the most amazing first run at ECTA.
What do you like better, building or driving?
Ooh, that's like
the impossible question, right?
That's a very fantastic question. I really like building things, working with my hands. It gives you a different level of like satisfaction, creating or getting that screw and nut and bolt to finally go together. That's a very personal gratification kind of thing. The racing thing has been something that is also a personal gratification, but it's very much more with a team and with people sharing it and being able to get people to sit in the car. And it's a more outward kind of personal event. And so they're both, I love building for me, but I love racing for existing. It's a fun way.
It's the reward. I was talking to Don a little bit about that. I need to get into Allison's work here real quick.
Oh, she's amazing.
All right. How did that meeting happen?
That was totally by chance. None of it was planned. And that's when I think the most incredible things happen, is when you have this convergence of these things and these people and this place and this experience. And I'm standing at the car show at the Nugget, and this beautiful young woman walks up to me and timidly asks me, is it okay if I ask you some questions? I'm like, yeah, it's me. It's just Liz and big dork. I had a checker wool hat on, my big clunky boots. And I'm like, yeah, sure, of course. And then she came back and said, well, is it okay if I visit you and your team? I said, yeah, look, I'm a media person first. Like if this is your first time here. She said, yeah, my parents have been coming for like 5 years. They've always, I make movies. But
she does.
But she didn't. She undersold that to me.
Yes, she does.
Like, I'm just kind of, no, she didn't. She didn't start off with that. I kind of was not realizing. I just thought, okay, well, yeah, this is a girl or a woman who was interested. And I'm like, well, I know where you can and can't go. I know the media people. I've been doing a photography here for over almost 10 years. Stick with me. Like, you want to come with us in the push truck? You want to come with me to the rookie meeting? Like, let me know what you want to see and stick with me, and I'll get you in to where I can get you in and share it with you. Like, more than happy. And so she was just filming with her phone. She had like this little gimbal thing, and she was just walking around, and I was just showing my new friend the salt flats, and she filmed like everything, every moment from the day before it happened, waiting in line, getting ready, working on the car. Literally, she has so many amazing. That was like a taste. That movie was just incredible, but it was a taste of she worked so hard. She captured every moment. And then Lorenzo, who's also a cinematographer, he came out and filmed a lot of those more cinematic shots. And his eye, as a photographer, I just saw his. I know. It's just like, oh my gosh, he's just so good. And he's done work with some quite notable people, and I didn't realize that at the time. Of course, just being so focused on the racing. And so it was this convergence of this incredibly talented people meeting this person going through a moment that had been slowly building. We couldn't have hired a team to follow us. She passionately captured something. It was like she was excited about it. And if she makes a longer film, which I think she wants to, you got this woman being taught and learning and realizing and experiencing Bonneville for the first time with this other person also going through a first time experience. And it's just the stuff that I've seen, like that film is just, I can't even explain what it feels like. The work that went into it, I have a list of the people working on. They made, there was a fellow who scored the music. There was a person who illustrated the cartoon. Like, I'm born in the 90s. We grew up on cartoons like everybody else. To be a cartoon, it's like, oh my gosh, completely mind-boggling. That was a surreal thing. And I think one of the things I loved about it the most too was being able to send that to the people we were just talking about, the people in high school that I was still friends with. Because I don't like making everything about me. I don't want to call my friends and be like, well, I did all this crazy, amazing stuff. Yeah. And, you know, but like I could send them that and they could experience a little bit of something special that happened. And
your true friends will always share in your joy.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, sitting in my seat here at Summit Racing, my goal for today was to share this with our customers and young people that want to get into this whole gig of ours. It's a passion. And yes, you can make it happen.
I think I've always kind of thought of it as, if this is a story that I'm reading, what's the more interesting decision? Is it to do the easy thing? Or is it to make the decision that you're comfortable, that everything's fine? Or what's the more interesting storyline for me? What would I want to see in this story? And it's never the easy thing to do that ends up being the most rewarding. You have to go through the trials and tribulations to truly feel the joys and the victories. And you do sacrifice certain things, like personal relationships, for example, are a big thing that I've heard other people who go through this kind of thing. It's difficult, but you find your people, you find the people that are your friends and that are your family. And in this racing community that I'm surrounded by, I have so many incredible supportive friends and family. And I'm fortunate. I'm not just like, I'm fortunate to have those people, but it does take a level of sacrifice or strife or sleeping in a car or, you know, do different things that you have to do to be at an event.
We talk about it. Like earlier in life, people are so afraid to talk about failure. I'm old enough now that I'm happy to say that I've learned the most through failures, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh boy. We're doing something that we could do into our 70s or even 80s and contribute. You're still going to have this intrinsic value that you do long from now. And really, you may be the last generation that's ever really doing the real thing rather than just playing video games.
I'm that weird transitional phase between, like, I've spent my entire life hanging out with a lot of older gentlemen, for example. So predominantly, like, one of my best friends is a 60-something-year-old man, you know? So it's like, I'm from this time period where I grew up with video games and I grew up with all these things in social media and like growing up with a computer in my house and flip phone, going to smartphone. But I also run steam locomotives and I work on 50 Chevys and I hang out on weekends at racetracks and at steam events. And so I've definitely got this very fascinating perspective where I've got my foot kind of in both camps. And I do understand the perspectives from both sides. And I always try to say, for example, that I'm an equal opportunity car lover. I don't say like, oh, I don't like this kind of car or this kind of, I go, well, a 3/8 bolt is a 3/8 bolt. The spanner is a spanner. You know, we all are using the same materials and the same tools to do the same thing, which is we're all passionate about building things that a vehicle is a place that you spend time in. It's a vehicle to get you to places to spend time with people. It's a place you spend time working on it. It's a transformative, amazing thing. I'm not trying to do anything besides just do what I love. And if people see me really enjoying what I'm doing, they'll join in and do it too. Because it's like, well, it's more fun to race with other people. Like, come build a hot rod. You can do it too. It's not as difficult as you might feel.
Going fast by yourself in a line or a circle or around a road course, that's good for, you know, a few laps. But ultimately, you want to do it with people. You want to have competition.
Yeah.
All right. So here's some other ones. So let's talk about what are the resources. Like, you don't have to have a fast car to go land speed racing.
Absolutely. So what you do for any of these sports that, like for Bonneville, for example, you get the rule book and you go through the rule book. And Every vehicle out there, almost every single one of them that you see was either built in a garage at home or a shop that's owned by. Every single one of those is built by people. You do have, factory teams that come out there occasionally. Yeah. You see those. But predominantly, you're seeing people that are going out there with things that they've built with their family and their friends. And all you do is you take the rule book, you go through it, you pick what vehicle you have access to or what you have in your yard, and then you go through the rule book and you slowly tick off all those boxes. And then you talk to people. There's a lot of community resources. Like if you go on Facebook, there's Facebook groups about Bonneville or about land speed racing.
Yeah. And Steve Strupp's new Bonneville Racers group. It is a place designed for newbies to the sport to go enter what I think is the first Bonneville event for street cars. Get your feet wet with this deal. And then if you fall in love with it, like we know that they will, go build a race car. Like
the Iron Dinosaur was built in the basement of a school. Everybody has that free will, but I think some people just don't realize that they're allowed to exercise that free will. They were never told that you're allowed to do that, but you are allowed. And as there are rules.
Until they say no,
exactly,
you are allowed.
Exactly. And, you're allowed to do anything as long as you fit within the rules and the guidelines that are put forth by either a sanctioning body or a group that you want to be a part of. And so with land speed racing, I think if you want to go out to Bonneville just to spectate, just go and check it out. Like go and spectate. Yeah. If you have a car and you have the ability to pay entry and go out there, just go and do it, because life's too short to say, oh, it's always been a dream, but it will never happen.
Exactly. So people talk about the budget. You're never going to have enough money, right? You just have to go do it.
Yeah. And the streetcar event, every event that's ever existed has had to have an inaugural event. Every event you've ever had will have things that go awry or things that go perfectly. I've never heard of any event, even the good ones that are amazing and have been going on forever and decades, that don't have every once in a while a little something in the works.
Again, throwing yourself into this thing and facing adversity is going to be, this is why we do this. We build memories, right?
Only when you face challenges do you get rewards. And so I understand that there's a lot of trepidation about the salt and people being concerned about it. But there's a lot of people who have been going out and racing at Bonneville for many, many years. And the best part
100 years.
Yeah. And a lot of the racers are more than willing to talk to you. If you reach out if you do anything in a kind, considerate way with the knowledge that these people revere Bonneville. Many people revere Bonneville as God's great white cathedral, as Wendell said in that film. It's a very sacred place for a lot of people. And I think that because there has been a history of people going out and doing burnouts, and there's a lot of fears about that. But I feel that as long as everybody goes out being respectful, courteous, kind, and caring, and listen to the rules, I think that there's a very perfectly good chance that this is the one first of many events. It doesn't, everyone needs to be positive, kind, courteous, caring.
Leave things better than you found them.
And just share the love of something that we really are passionate about. And so let's share it with as many young people. I think we should tell Votech schools, like, hey, build something. And there have been some schools, but they should absolutely have more Votech schools building vehicles and
learn to machine, learn to build metalwork, electronics. I mean, it is all there within STEM. It's another whole subject. But anyway, what we should do with any interview is talk about the future. So what is Liz Legett's future look like?
Wow. This coming summer, I'm very excited. I've been talking, of course, with Dawn and the team. And also, as I've mentioned before, I got to restore the Pure Hell funny car with EJ Kowalski. I got to help with that. And EJ has a shop in Pennsylvania, and he builds incredible hot rods. And I'm very lucky to get to work with him and work on those cars and restoring those cars as well, and here and there. But I'm also doing photos and books and things. So I'm a little all over the place for work-wise, but that's okay, because I think right now we're looking at 28 days of racing this summer for me, between drag racing with the Vintage Eliminator group, a little roadster, circle track racing. We're doing the first thing that's coming up on my schedule is at South Mountain. We're doing some drag racing. Then I'm going to be at Arkansas doing land speed racing with the Dinosaur. Then there's a couple of other races in between there, but then we're going to be probably going to Loring, Maine, which I've never been. So we're going to go up to Loring, which is another land speed event. And so we're going to do some of that. That's in July. Then we're going to be going to Bonneville with the Iron Dinosaur. And doing some, I'm really excited for Nitro Revival, which is, and you got to get to Nitro Revival if you're into drag racing. But yeah, there's so many things like Jennertown Cars for Kids and car shows and events. And I'm just, this summer is action packed. So I'm very excited for the future.
Again, Liz, thank you from everybody here at Summit Racing Equipment. We share your passion. Everybody here is very, very passionate about all these little things we do. Drag, circle track, road course, power sports, off-road, truck, Baja, boating, you name it, right? And we're here to try to support this craziness. Look,
Summit is synonymous with racing in so many different facets. We all collect those Summit Racing stickers. I have them stuck everywhere. Anytime I get parts, I'm like, where's my stickers? And honestly, I can't explain how it feels to have you and the Summit team even want to talk to me, because to me, it's synonymous with racing. You guys are everywhere, and that's the thing. As a company, I see you guys supporting the things that I love and the things that I'm passionate about, and I can't thank you guys enough for doing what you guys do to promote, be it creators, or I was watching the 2Gen video the other day, the podcast, like supporting young creators, supporting young people who want to race and giving them a voice. And they were photographers too. And that's the thing. It's just so cool that you want to talk to me at all. And I'm so honored to spend any time with you guys. So thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you for everybody joining us in this podcast today. I guess I'd encourage you that if you know young people, that are kind of on the fence or maybe looking for a way into racing or just cars, whatever it is in general, try to share this podcast with them and feel free to leave comments, questions. We will be there to answer questions and to help where we can. And with that, I guess we'll wrap it up here for today. Liz Leggett, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian. Honestly, greatest time ever. Thank you.
This has been the On All Cylinders podcast,
powered by Summit Racing.
Check out new episodes coming soon at OnAllCylinders.com.
OnAllCylinders.com.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.